We are delighted and blessed to have Governor Hochul with us. I welcome our wardens to come up and greet the governor in our name, and the bishop will also extend the greetings of the diocese. And then she will address us.
Do you want to speak? Governor Hochul, thank you so much for coming to St. Marks. On behalf of St. Marks Church, we welcome you, and we bring greetings from Reverend Anne Marie Witchger, who could not be with us today. We now want to welcome the bishop.
I got a text message yesterday afternoon from your rector, Anne Marie Witchger. Actually, not, she called me. She called me from where she was, and glad that I was around and received the call. She said, Governor Hochul is coming to my church. I cannot be there. Could you be there? So I said, well, you're very lucky. I haven't left on vacation yet, so there's one more Sunday. Tomorrow I'll be gone. Governor Hochul, it is truly, truly an honor, and we're delighted that you have chosen to join us today. And welcome to you. And really grateful to you for all the work that you do, especially all the stuff that's going on. And lately, your moratorium on the data processing centers is right on. Thank you so very, very much.
Well, I was told that this is a church of provocative sermons, and I was not disappointed, Reverend John. Well done, well done. And Bishop Shin, thank you. I hope that you didn't say you delayed a vacation, but maybe we can add an extra day on the other end if you stayed for me. And to the wardens and everyone who made me feel so welcome. It was short notice, but there's something in my heart that compelled me to be here today. Because my heart has been heavy for a long time in light of what we've been seeing, especially out of Washington, and the people being hurt so deeply. So as someone who was raised as a social justice Catholic back in a blue-collar town where my dad worked at the steel plant and my immigrant grandparents could only get a job at the steel plant and migrant farm workers because they wouldn't hire the Irish at the time, we know what discrimination felt like. Nothing of the scale we're seeing today, but it's something that's troubled me a long, long time. And thank God I'm in a position to be able to do something about it on behalf of people of this state. But to come to a church that is so steeped in history, existing God's presence on this site for over 100 years before our nation was born, that's an extraordinary legacy to uphold, and all of you have done it so beautifully. And I know there's been challenges, and I've read the great history of this church and 1978 when the church was burned, but there was that steeple that stood standing. There was a lot of destruction and chaos and sadness around that, but what rose up and stood as a beacon that I'm still here, God is still here, the people are still here, was that steeple. And I feel like that symbolizes what's happening in our country right now. Sometimes it just feels like things are starting to collapse under the weight of all the destruction and chaos, and as you talked about, the words that come out of people's mouths and how hurtful they are, and that is exactly what God would not want. But it sometimes calls on the church family to stand together with elected officials and community leaders to use our voices as Jesus would want us to do, to call out injustice, to call out cruelty, to stand up to what is happening in our communities today. And I'll get into some more specifics here. But, the cruel attacks on our immigrants and out-of-control actions by ICE. Just recently, just last week, I had a stand against what the Trump administration did, which is withdraw all the money that had been there for 20 years. President George Bush would probably be happier as a Democrat these days if I had to go out on a limb, but George Bush signed into law the requirement that no child should ever have to sit alone in a courtroom to defend themselves in a deportation proceeding. A child alone without a lawyer. Those legal services were paid for 20 years. As of last week, the money was withdrawn. So you can see a 5-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old walking in, not knowing the language, not knowing what to do, and the expectation of our system of so-called justice would say that child is on their own. How do we abandon little children? And that's exactly what they were prepared to do, and we stood up and I said, no, that's not happening in the great state of New York. I allocated over $7 billion, and there'll be more if they need it, to the groups that have been providing that service so those children will be treated with the respect and dignity that they deserve, because this is our great country. And then the Haitian and Syrian families that are being torn apart after the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court used to be the firewall against crazy. That's how it was set up. And boy, have they missed it. They have now been succumbed to the pressures that they felt, and it is going to take a long time for us to heal that branch of government, I'm afraid. But they took away legal protective status for Syrians and Haitians. And I literally talked to President Trump about 4 days ago about this. I said, President Trump, can you answer this? Who's going to take care of people? What are you talking about? Do you know that the Haitians comprise the largest group of people who work in healthcare in our communities? They're the ones that are taking care of people with disabilities, our senior citizens. And I walked in Little Haiti into a facility that was a home care facility, had 150 people who were told we're not going into the home, that we've been taking care of someone who trusts us, just like we had help from my father. It takes a long time to develop that trust, and now they're not showing up because of what you're doing. He said, I'll look into it. Not holding my breath on that one. But I wanted to just tell him what he was doing was so wrong on so many levels. And you think about the stress that our families are under, and I thank this church for being, living the teaching of Christ every single day in what you do, providing food and services for people and clothing, and the poverty that is still so immense. And it's only gotten so much worse when the tariffs have increased the cost of groceries, the cost of gasoline, even if you don't have a vehicle yourself, that the cost of everything getting to you, and for our firefighters and our emergency, all the costs are going up because of an inflicted war that has no purpose other than to distract. I'm going to say this because I think this is what was going on at the time. Distract from Jeffrey Epstein. I'm just going to make that claim. This was a big distraction, and guess what? It worked. It worked for now. So I pray for a better time, but more than pray, I'm going to act. And I'm standing up, and I'm using the power of this office. Because I was raised as a social justice Catholic. I was that 5th grader who wore a black armband in my Catholic grade school to protest the Vietnam War, and the nuns didn't quite understand that. And my parents started something called the Social Action Network, and I literally ran into a friend from when I was a child. He says, remember when we were in 7th grade and you rounded up all the girls in our class, and we all had to get on a bus to go to downtown Buffalo and bring food and clothing to poor people? Remember, because that was the first time I'd ever seen someone in such poverty, and you opened my eyes to this. A friend literally told me that yesterday. So even as a kid, I felt the teachings of Christ living through me, because that's what I was taught in a household that talked about Dr. Martin Luther King while he was still alive. I did a book report on him when I was a little kid, talking about him in present tense because he had come to our community. We knew who he was. We knew his teachings, and those still live in me today. But what impresses me the most is that it lives in all of you, that the partnership that I've developed with the clergy, the people who are on the ground, and Bishop Hyde is part of my clergy council, and that's why I wanted to come here today to honor this sect of religion, because this is known as an activist church. And I'm just going to say thank you, but we have so much more to do together. This is the synergy that God expects from us, elected leaders, community leaders, and the church, to continue living out why he sent his son to earth, and have the Sermon on the Mount, and prick our conscience about what we're supposed to do with the poor, the hungry, the lonely, the incarcerated, our senior citizens. Because in government, those are all the people that I care the most about. Not the ones who are doing fine or doing just fine, but those who are left behind to say, I'm just not getting ahead, and it's not fair. I just want to have the life that my family came here for, or my grandparents came here, or people came generations ago, and perhaps they came in on a slave ship. But the promise of this country is always to do better than the previous generation, and that is not what is happening now. So to the young people in this audience, and those who are listening, I also want to give you a message. It is not your fault that society has let you down, that it's now a time when you thought you could buy your first home at age 30 is now age 40, that you thought a college degree, maybe studying computer science or computers meant you'd have a job forever, and you didn't count on the AI revolution to make you unemployed. And these data centers, that we're going to let these data centers consume all the energy they want, all the water they want. This is God's earth, and we have to protect it. So we know what mission we're on, we know what we have to do, and I appreciate all of you for being part of God's army here on earth to do what you do every single day. So to the people of St. Marks, I thank you.